All right. We're going to welcome you all and just basically just give a little housekeeping as we start up. For those of you who are new tonight, and I'll ask that question in just a moment, but there's tea and coffee and soda and beer and wine and some other drinks, and Jerry will be glad to serve them to you. We love to patronize the Knights of Columbus. They've been very, very good to us. In fact, let's give Jerry a big hand. He's got all those compressors back there. He doesn't hear half of what we say, so we can insult him in pretty much impunity. But anyway, I do want to welcome you here officially to our October meeting for Campaign for Liberty. I'm Lowell Sheets, just one of the steering committee. There's a lot of folks on the steering committee. In fact, if you're on the steering committee, why don't you just raise your hand? So these are the people that really do the work. Vicki, come on, raise your hand high. You do all the work. Come on, you know. All right. So we're going to open today in a word of prayer and a pledge to the flag. So if you'd stand together with me. Let's pray. Dear Father, we thank you for your love for us. We thank you for your patience, for your grace, for your mercy, and not for your justice for the things that we deserve. But I thank you that you've loved us enough to die for us, but also to give us this freedom that we've enjoyed, to be born in this country or to be in this country. And we just pray that you would help us to be worthy of such a great honor and such great blessings, and that we might be able to pass these blessings on to our children and to our grandchildren, and that we might thwart the evil one who seeks to enslave all of us, physically, mentally, spiritually, and in every possible way. We just pray that you would bless our efforts here tonight, bless our country. Thank you for everyone who's come tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. How many are here for the very first time tonight? We will not embarrass you other than this. This is it. This is as far as it goes. Oh, that's awesome. Let's give these guys a hand. A lot of new folks here and some young people. Yes, I remember young people. I used to be one. Hard to imagine. Just to let you know that the Constitution is at the heart of everything that we believe in Campaign for Liberty. It's the founding document of our government. And so like our founding fathers, we believe in a non-interventionist foreign policy. We believe our military is far overstretched. I guess I should follow your lead here, Mike, and just talk about the things that are on the screen at the time. We believe in individual liberty and constitutional government. Limited constitutional government of a republic. Most people on the street, if you ever watched Jay Leno, would have no idea that we're a republic. Actually, they don't have any idea about anything that's going on in this country if you watch Jay Leno. We believe that the free market is the most humane economic system and the greatest engine of prosperity the world has ever known. We believe that central banking basically distorts economic decision-making and misleads entrepreneurs into making unsound investments. That's why we oppose the Federal Reserve System, which, as you know, is neither federal nor has any reserve. They have destroyed the value of our currency, the fiat currency that we spend with, the money that we spend with. There we go. Sound money in free markets. In 2012, the average dollar is worth like the 1913 dollars worth 3.48 cents, and people think they're doing good in the stock market. But they've destroyed the value of our currency. It's a tax on all of us. Basically, we believe in all these aspects of Americanism, of the free market, constitutional government, individual liberty, sound money, and a non-interventionist foreign policy by means of education and political activity. And we've come together, we started this about December of 2008. We're so glad you're here with us tonight. We've had many, many wonderful meetings here, and we're going to have a tremendous one here tonight. We have phenomenal speakers, and you are going to be very glad you came. Is there anybody in law enforcement here tonight? You can I mean, unless you're undercover. Scott, you're in law enforcement? What law are you going to enforce, Scott? No, I'm just kidding. And if you're undercover, it's totally fine. But anyway, tonight our first speaker is going to be Dan Galuzzo. Dan is a gentleman we've just gotten to know within the last year. He's a very, very committed and serious patriot. We've enjoyed his small, short talks that we've allowed him to do, and tonight we get to hear a real treat where he's going to be talking to us about the militarization of the police force. Dan has worked for the NSA. He's an architect, and he has an architectural firm in Baltimore City. He went to Loyola and Mount Vernon School of Law.
Right.
Correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I've got that memory.
You did.
Don't talk about
Great
it.
memory.
All right. And so tonight, let's give a really warm welcome to Dan Galuzzo.
I want to thank the board to let me give you some thoughts on this. When they asked me about the subject matter, I thought, okay, we can whip this up. But it changes daily, and it doesn't change for the best. But what I really want to caution you on is that we are all pro liberty. We're certainly law-abiding. So we have nothing against the police force. What I'm trying to present to you with some facts is that ultimately we should be able to sit with the police force, and in our county it'd be the sheriff's office, and have some communication and discourse back and forth, because there's some things that are happening that I don't think they really understand the severity of it. So I'll start with this. I really started with the militarization of our police force, and my question becomes, how did we get from this to this? And it's an unusual question because what happens, there's a certain amount of history here. I'll give it to you briefly. The problem with this topic is there's a lot of information. So if I speak too fast for you, I apologize. I'm trying to get it all in a period of time. About 1965, there were some riots out in Watts in LA. Some of us may remember that. It was caused by 3 men that were stopped on a routine traffic disorder, and they really started tearing apart Watts. At that particular point, there were about 1,000 people that were involved in it, in the riot. And the police found immediately that they were pretty much outgunned and outmanned. A gentleman by the name of, I think I missed one, right? Daryl Gates, we're on that. He's really the founder of the SWAT team. He went to the military and he said, how can we prevent this from happening again? So they created the SWAT team. Originally it was called Special Weapons Attack Team, but that was too harsh, so they modified it and made it Special Weapons and Tactics. And what he thought was, and it comes from there, today we got thousands of SWAT teams. And it's very, very interesting. After Watts occurred, what happened were there were a lot of different things with the Symbian Liberation Front, Black Panthers, and a gentleman by the name of Charles Whitman, who put himself in a bell tower on Texas University and started picking off people. He shot 23 people. He pinned the policemen down, and they really realized that they were totally outmanned, outgunned. And so the SWAT team became very, very apparent. Through the 60s and the 70s, crime skyrocketed. And most of the crime was associated either with civil rights disturbances or drugs. So their big excuse was the fighting the war on drugs. In essence, both Republicans and Democrat administrations started giving block grants out so that police departments could buy material. Recently, that's really become a little bit out of hand. I do want to mention this is an interesting little photo. The Department of Natural Resources in Wisconsin got a Black Hawk helicopter from a grant through the Department of Homeland Security, and they immediately formed a SWAT team, And this little creature was found by the St. Francis no-kill pet shelter. And because they housed a wild animal without a license, the helicopter and SWAT team descended on them and took the animal and killed it. Okay? Now it goes on from there. It gets worse from that. It became more and more tragic. He had a 37-year-old optometrist by the name of Sal Caluso in Fairfax, Virginia, who would go to a local tavern. They'd watch basketball and football games, and they start betting on it. $50, $25, and so forth. Next to him was a gentleman by the name of Detective David Balcom. Detective Balcom started betting with Dr. Carlosi and got him to the point where Dr. Carlosi owed him about $200. Naturally, he was undercover agent. He got a SWAT team because of gambling. They raided Dr. Colosi's home. As soon as he opened the door, he was unarmed, and they shot him to death based on gambling at a tavern. And it goes on from there. I really need to tell you a little bit more because it's happening in Maryland, and we're kind of really worried about it. There are many things that make me question, how did we get from Mayberry's finest to this? This is a bear cat delivered at $600,000, and guess what? We have one in Harford County. These bear cats have been given through grants. The grants don't come directly from Department of Homeland Security or from FEMA or from Department of Defense. They come indirectly. In other words, the money is given to the state, and the state puts it out through a grant through one of the organizations. There are a lot of them. This particular thing is an anti-mine and anti-attack weapon that was used in Afghanistan. It's beyond me why we need one in Harford County, but one of the current themes that's running throughout is the police safety and public safety. I want you to keep that in mind. That's how they're thinking about this. It's their safety and public safety. Okay?
Killing citizens. It's about. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Okay. As we go, it's understandable that police should protect themselves, and yet I don't understand why they need equipment like this. In Prince George's County, the mayor of Berwyn Heights, Mayor Calvo, he filed a civil rights suit just against the police department there. They raided his home looking for drugs. They shot his 2 Labrador retrievers. They found no drugs. And it goes on like that. There's much more others. Almost always, and I don't think it's reported exactly accurately, and I'll show you the reporting mechanism, almost always, if there's a dog involved in the house, that dog is going to get killed. They consider the dog to be a real threat to them. There's an elderly couple that was in Prince George's County, had their dog killed on a mistaken raid. In Howard County, police broke down the door in front of a 12-year-old girl. They beat up her father, then shot and killed the man's Australian cattle dogs. They were looking for someone suspected of stealing a rifle from a police car. The suspect didn't even live at that address. Prince George's County raided the wrong home of a couple in Akakeek. They tied them up. They had the wrong address. The couple wanted to bring their boxer in from outside, and the police went out and shot it. In Annapolis, the police deployed a flash grenade, broke open an apartment door, kicked a man in the groin during a mistaken drug raid. When they later served the warrant on the correct address, they found no drugs. In Montgomery County, not only did the police do a mistaken 4 in the morning raid, they broke the door, offered free movie passes to the residents when they found they had a mistake. This one's an insult to injury story. In Baltimore, SWAT team tore down the door of 33-year-old Andrew Leonard on a mistaken raid. The city refused to pay for his door, which was totally destroyed. When Leonard called the city's bulk trash pickup to come and get the door, no one came. So he put it in his backyard. Days later, the city code inspector fined him $50 for storing a broken door in his backyard. Maryland SWAT teams raid homes on a hunch. Public Safety Article 3-507. Oh, I'm sorry, let me back up a minute. The average salary, thank you, Michael. The average salary for the SWAT team is $121,000. They start at $99,890. You can make a salary about $142,700 a year. The average SWAT team age is 38 years old. So that's their motivation for doing things, okay? Next, if you don't mind. SWAT gone wild in Maryland. The first report filed under Maryland Article 3507 is a report that is prepared by the governor's office. The information that this report provides is given through all the sheriffs and all the police officers to them. It's very questionable as to whether or not the information is totally valid, mainly because they don't report mistaken raids. They just report the ones that are more successful. And there are 1,651 SWAT deployments, and that's pretty militaristic terms, in Maryland. Of those, there were 38 in Harford County. That's why I look back and see, why do we need this kind of equipment? Harford County's crime has gone down over the past 15 years. And there's some interesting figures and statistics on that. The way they classify crimes, there are two parts. There's a Part 1 index crimes and Part 2 crimes. The Part 1 index crimes are violent crimes, a murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, and they're crimes against property, breaking and entering, larceny, theft, motor vehicle theft, and other. The Part 2 crimes are illegal drugs, recovery and seizure of those, and contraband. Now, I can tell you this, for every category in Part 1, we have had a reduction over the past 3 years of greater than 25%. Harford County is ranked behind Carroll County as the most safe county in the state. And our murder rate, some years it's 2 people, others it's 5. But let me tell you about the officers that were murdered in Maryland. There were 4 of them. One was done by auto accident, and that was in 2013. Another was done by, 2 others were done by heart attacks, one in 2009 and one in 2011. There was one officer killed by gunshot, and that was in 1899. These are figures from the police department. I'm not quoting a thing that isn't given to me by either the police department or the governor's office or other places that are with government. So we don't really have a factor where a lot of people in our state are killing a lot of police officers. Now, it's interesting that when you break down the reasons for SWAT deployment, you'll find on the right, 52% are Part 2 crimes, which means that they get a warrant searching for drugs. For a great majority, it's a drug search and seizure. And that means on that warrant, they are able to do a no-knock entry or break a door down if they feel that someone's inside that could hurt them. So they're searching for drugs and coming into your home at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. The Part 1 crimes, which are the serious crimes, it's about 44% of those. And those are mostly with people that they issued out a warrant for that's either an escaped criminal or someone that's being sought out by a previous warrant. The crime that we have in Harford County is almost augmented in a Route 40 corridor. And it's a lot more drugs than anybody knows. Now, we have police in our family. No one is really trying to knock the policemen. Their job is hard. It's a dangerous job. That's true. There's no doubt about it. What we are saying is that with the militarization and the concept of SWAT, they have been overly aggressive on things. Where there is a barricade situation, just like we had with Mr. Johnson in Harford County, where he was holding his ex-wife hostage, they brought a SWAT team out. Now, you know what? They can wait him out. They can wait. But they didn't. And they took aim on him. They killed him. More people are shot by police than people shooting police. And so it's something to really take a look at. So the clear question is, what's happening to our police forces? Have they turned into something almost out of control? I never thought that I would side with the ACLU, but the ACLU has reached they have reached a campaign now where they're suing several police departments for exactly what we're talking about, that they become so aggressive that it's almost scary to even talk to them. They're picking up military tactical equipment, military heavy-duty equipment. Now, how it works is this. As soon as we had the Patriot Act installed, it expanded, and they made a concurrent act run with it where surplus equipment from the military would be given to the police force. And we understand that. So they're getting Kevlar and a whole bunch of bulletproof equipment, that's fine. But they did put it in that law that they couldn't buy guns directly. So what they do is they buy some heavy-duty equipment or give a grant for training, and then that leaves the police department enough latitude to buy their own guns. By the way, we hear a lot about AR-15s being an assault weapon, classified that way by the government. Happen to tell you that Harford County has a couple dozen of them. So something that's not legal for anyone, they have. They're not sure how many flashbang grenades they have. They know that they do not have a 50 caliber machine gun.
Yeah.
There are many.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Yet. Yeah, that's a good, yet is right. Because that Bearcat that I showed you can equip with a 50 caliber machine gun. I have no idea, no reason why to understand why anybody would want a 50 caliber machine gun in police work. If you fired one of those rounds, it would go right through this building. I mean, it's unnecessary. So we're looking at them going too far. Now here's how it comes down. It comes down into a very strange thing. There's nothing for free. We know that. When you're dealing with the federal government, we definitely know there's nothing for free. So they get these grants, and there are two things that they want back, the federal government, with these grants. One, they want them to adopt federal training. So suddenly the police department has a coordinator, that's an FBI group or Department of Homeland Security group. Suddenly they're training men in our backyard as though they're in the military or as though they're under heavy fire all the time. They want them to be trained according to military standards. Now it's interesting to know that they also have to report back to them. So they'll give you this, but you have to give them control of a certain amount. One other interesting feature that I think you would find interesting is there were several hundred executive orders signed by the present administration. Of those executive orders, 16 of them allowed him to, in times of turmoil, war, terrorist attack, or financial turmoil, he can absolutely marshal the police forces that he is supplying. And guess what? Last year, in 2012, $74 billion went to police forces across the country. There are anywhere from 70,000 to 80,000 SWAT raids per year across the country. I think that's an alarming number. I really do.
Yeah.
We do need police officers to respond to local issues, but not serve as foot soldiers for the federal spy agencies or the federal government. Terrorism's not the problem. You got a better chance of being killed by your furniture in your house than you do being killed by a terrorist in Harford County. Now they'll tell you that we have Peach Bottom. One in particular told me, we got a Clorox plant. That could be a dangerous piece of equipment in the wrong hands. I agree with that. Surround the plant, and they do. Department of Homeland Security provided grants through Natural Resources for 6 SUVs to be equipped. By the way, they take them over to Hartford Votech, and they use them as a training tool for the students there to equip them. So they put the guts in these pieces of equipment, and then those SUVs and ATVs are doing the perimeter performance, where they are keeping guard of a Clorox plant, or any kind of what they consider to be a real dangerous or terrorist inviting plant. And I'm saying, okay, that's fine. But there's something that's also happening in the country. Oakland, California, in Alameda County, the police there wanted to acquire drones. The people said, we don't want them. And they rolled back the grants from DHS. In Cambridge, Massachusetts, the same thing was done. They rolled back the grants that were given. They said, we don't want that heavy-duty equipment. In Concord, New Hampshire, they did the same. There are about 24 towns across the country that are saying, wait a minute, we're not so sure we want that equipment here. Now, are we saying that we really don't want our police to be equipped? Of course we do. Of course we want them to be equipped. But for what and when? I think that's the issue. We need SWAT teams are deployed to respond to potentially dangerous or violent situations in order to minimize the risk of harm to police officers and members of the public. That's in the public safety thing. Havre de Grace, Bel Air, and Aberdeen just came together in agreement, and they did it publicly, where they're putting together a municipal SWAT team where they can cooperate to each other. Keep in mind, we've had 38 SWAT team deployments in Harford County in 2012. And of the 38, 12 of them were really in the sheriff's office. The rest were in, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. 24 of those were in the sheriff's office. The rest were in Havre de Grace and Bel Air. So the question comes, how much should we equip these people, and what are they going to use it for? I don't see anybody receiving equipment of this type without having an intention to use it. So, I go back to things. Why did you shoot me? I was reading a book. That's exactly what happened on a SWAT deployment. They broke into the house, the man was reading a book, he went to get up forward to them, they shot him. Now, I want to quote something. When a man carries a gun all the time, the respect he thinks he's getting might really be fear. So I don't carry a gun because I don't want the people of Mayberry to fear a gun. I'd rather they would respect me. Now, I know people can say, this is not Mayberry. We know that. We're definitely aware of that. But certainly it's not Baltimore City, it's not Detroit, and it's not New York. It's Harford County. And Harford County should have a dialogue. I started one. I spoke with Ed Hopkins, the Department of the Information Officer at Harford County, at the Sheriff's Office. He was very, very nice. He was very straightforward, and he promised in a week or so to invite us to the Southern Precinct where we can look at the equipment that they had. And I asked him a whole list of equipment if they had it, and he didn't know. He didn't know all these things. He knew some things, but not all of them. I think there should be a transparency. I think they should tell us where they're getting their grants from and what's the purpose of their grants. I think there should be a communication between the community that before they pick up a heavy-duty vehicle like a Bearcat, that we have a discussion as to what its application would be for. Why pick up equipment that was used in Afghanistan on a barricade when you can wait out somebody? We don't have that much call for those things here in Harford County. And I think that's what bothers. But it gets down to a basic principle. Money corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. The federal government gives equipment to all these towns, and it's a form of money laundering, there's no doubt about it. They don't give it directly. For example, Department of Agriculture has given grants for Bearcats. Fish and Wildlife and Department of Agriculture have given grants for Bearcats. It goes down where you see that some of the agencies that are given these funds have no relation at all. For example, Department of Education gave a grant out for a Bearcat. Now, you would think that they would spend that money more wisely to educate our children as to right and wrong and a decent culture than to equip a town or community with a really heavy-duty piece of equipment. We know that Haverty Grace has a mobile center. They're $4 million each. Our own sheriff's office is getting a small Bell Ranger helicopter. Now, Bell Rangers are funny helicopters. I qualified in those, and I could probably fly this one if it doesn't have too much stuff on it. This is a 1970 Bell Ranger. That's a very good little vehicle. It's not the point of having the Bell Ranger. What are you having it for? This sheriff is creating a division, an air safety division, with a budget of $25 million. And they're training people now in conjunction with the requirements from Department of Homeland Security. So I'm saying to you, fine, where does that money come from? Why is it there? And show me a government budget that started out and shrunk. There's no such animal. They're going to expand. So now we're looking at $25 million, and that money comes out of your taxes. It's interesting. Crime has gone down dramatically. Little by little, piece at a time, government expands and taxes increase. But it goes way past this, and it's something that's really disturbing to me. I was born in Baltimore City. I lived for 40 years in Harford County. We knew the cop on the beat by first name. It was Mr. Mike. He was a wonderful guy. He'd come over and ask how we were, and we'd say, we're fine. He said, nobody bothers you, right? No, we're fine. Nobody's bothering us. No trouble here. We knew him. He was a friend. We trusted him. I don't know one name of any of the personnel, police officers in Jarrettsville Station. I couldn't tell you if my life depended on it. And guess what? They don't know me unless they would stop me for something. So I think we've missed something here. We missed the community approach where the police are friends of ours, where we are helping them properly to help our neighbors that are in problems. Now, it's very, very interesting to know that 65% of all the people that are shot by the police are people that are on medication or have been withdrawn from medication. And there's an assistance act that allows you to keep track of people that are on heavy meds. And the police are in a dangerous situation when they're confronted by someone like the 19-year-old boy that was just killed not too long ago at a snowball stand in Bel Air. He was on meds. They withdrew him from those meds. He had a major problem. He attacked the policeman. That's the wrong thing to do. I think we would all agree to that. We are not against the police. We're saying don't practice overkill. I don't know if you've all had the luxury of having a helicopter come down on your house and 12 to 20 men dressed up terribly with heavy-duty equipment just come in and bang into your house. If someone entered your home, you would think it's a home invasion. If they're making mistakes and they kill you and there's no redress to it, what have we done? What on earth have we done as a society? So, I think it's becoming alarming. There's so many cases I can't report on everything, but I would tell you this. We're absolutely looking at Article 4 of the Constitution, where you have a right to be left alone in your house. This is what bothers me the most. Warrants that were issued by the British Army were issued just for anything. They can walk into your house and search anything they want. They didn't even have a rhyme or reason. That article is supposed to protect us. It says you will specifically say what you're looking for and who you're looking to see. And if you go in with a warrant that doesn't specify that, then two things are happening that are very bad. One, judges are signing anything. That's one. And two, police are probably not doing enough undercover work to establish a real factual case against a house or a person. It's only two things that could go wrong. Or maybe there is a third. Maybe they're all crazy. And I'm coming to believe you've got to be. It's not the right thing to do. Article 4 should be preserved. In essence, got one little note here, if I may. We want the police to have the equipment that they need, but we only want them to use it when they absolutely have to. We want them trained properly, but we also want specific warrants and a knowledge of the Constitution, especially the Fourth Amendment, being taught to them. We want the police to be protected, but we want to be protected from the police. The bottom line is, we don't want the police to be controlled by the federal government. I don't think any of us in this room want that. We want transparency. We want to be able to go to any police officer and say, what are you doing? When was the last time you walked up to a police officer at a Dunkin' Donuts in his car and said, why are you here? Is there danger somewhere? You're not doing that because you're afraid of them. We have become afraid of the people that are supposed to protect us. I got to tell you an interesting, it's an awful story. It was an autistic boy, 15 years old, in California, Huntington Beach. Nice place. He ran away from home. He slipped out. He's autistic. The policeman came upon him. He was on the ground, laying there. Didn't have any weapons. He wasn't confronting anyone. They tasered him for his own safety. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Another one, they went on a bad warrant, and the gentleman said, what are you doing here? Slammed the door on him. They shot him 29 times. They riddled his house and his neighbor's houses with bullets. This is SWAT teams. An 18-year-old girl in Laguna Beach, either she was on drugs or was drinking, at 3 o'clock in the morning, wandering around the park. She had a penknife in her hand, 3 inches long. 2 policemen came upon her and said, surrender. She was speaking gobbledygook. They should have known, the big guys that they were, that this girl is in trouble. Let's get back up, let's corner her, let's disarm her properly. They shot her 18 times. I would think that if you shoot someone once, twice, 3 times, you might be able to incapacitate them. I don't see any need for anybody shooting anybody 29 times. So I'm saying, my presentation is, they're overreacting. There is a culture that is being grown here. It's a military culture. The police are no longer police. They're an extension of military. And now what do? For a minor traffic violation, maybe you're parking wrong, maybe you're just standing around waiting for your wife to come out of the shop. You can get in not only severe trouble, but you can be killed. I don't think this is good. We need communication, back and forth, and most important, I think that whoever the judges are that issue an improper warrant, wrong address, wrong person, wrong home, wrong house, and it's happened thousands of times. I think they ought to be held accountable.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really do. That's one of my strongest feelings. Now I want to go back to one other thing, and that's the last one. And look what he says. An officer of the law shall enforce the law and order without regard to personal welfare and safety. How did that get changed around? We're not in Mayberry. I know that. I work in the city of Baltimore. I'm right in the heart of Baltimore. I see things every day. We all do down there. But we're in Harford County. We know where the crime is localized. We know where it's not. Do we absolutely need SWAT teams out here? Do we? If we have to have them, shouldn't there be more limit and control? And by the way, I brought with me the reports from the state of Maryland that summarize all the details that I've given. I've also brought all the backup. You're very welcome to observe them all. It's a very disturbing thing because I don't want the police to get the impression that we don't like them or we hate them. But the truth of the matter is, we love our country, we fear our government,
Amen.
and we're being more and more fearful with our police department. You got an election year coming up. I think they ought to stand up and tell us, I'm for the Fourth Amendment. I'm for oversight, inspection, cooperation, and transparency. I think we ought to roll back a Bearcat that we have in Hartford County. That's a $600,000. I really do. I really do. And the only way we can do this is to start communication. I think anyone who's running for public office right now should be able to hold our hand a little bit and say, look, we want to work with you. Do any of you have police officers in your families? Couple. Ask them this. Can they recite part of the Fourth Amendment? Can they tell us, besides being in concern for their own safety, can they tell us what their function is? Is it to protect them, or is it to help the community to get better? Most of the police that work a good situation are those who know the community. They know where everyone is. They know who's doing something wrong. I mean, Jarrettsville with a Bearcat, they've had two things in Jarrett. They had a naked man walking down 165 who was drunk, and they had a lot of mailboxes beat up during Halloween. We've not had anybody murder anybody there, and certainly not policemen. So I'm saying, it's for the policeman's protection. Well, we honor you as policemen if you honor the Constitution. We honor you as policemen if you're not a clone or working for the federal government. We have a sheriff's office. We elect the sheriff. I'm not so sure that we need the FBI to do anything but coordinate with the sheriff's office, not tell them how to train, not tell them when to use SWAT teams. It's distressing, and it becomes more and more distressing. And I thank you very much for letting me have the opportunity to show you. There are so many thousands of cases that when I started to research this, it became absolutely overwhelming. I couldn't believe it. I called a friend of mine who lives in Los Angeles and said, how do you feel toward your police? We stay away from them. We totally stay away from them. Half the time, they're one step away from being the crooks that they're trying to chase. Yeah. That is a terrible way to develop your community. It really is. Do they understand this? Does the police department, the sheriff's department, truly understand that we want their safety, but we don't want to lose our safety? Do they understand that we have to work together? Crime has gone down severely in Hartford County. You know, really when you see the figures, you're saying, this is ridiculous. I don't know yet how much Hartford County received in federal money through this laundering system. I will find that out and report back to you. But I can tell you this, try to open up a dialogue with policemen. Try to make them understand that we're not the enemy. We're not terrorists. You know, they look at everybody as terrorists. If you're pro-animal, you're on a terrorist list. What's going on? In any event, I think the police forces have become more and more militarized. And I thank you very much for listening to me.
Does anyone have a question for Dan? You've got a little more time, Dan.
Sure.
The $600,000 Bearcat, how much does that cost us as taxpayers every year for maintenance
You're absolutely
and
right.
upkeep?
You're absolutely
That
right.
kind of piece of equipment probably costs $100,000 a year to maintain.
You're absolutely right. You can see it not only in that piece of equipment, but there's training that goes along with it. You got to pay for that. You can see it in what this present sheriff is doing by starting an air division. It starts out with $25 million grant, but he's got to keep the wheels going. He has to keep the training, the maintenance, the insurances, all of those public safety features that cost. Guess who pays for that? Right, the taxpayer pays for it, and that's really a shame. I think our tax dollars will be spent better if we take a look at our community and cooperate with the police and have them cooperate with us. Yes, sir.
Is that vehicle assigned to the sheriff's department, or
Yes.
is it part of the state police?
No, it's the sheriff's department. By the way, the state police has a wonderful helicopter team, and we got minivac and airvac here that's, according to a friend of mine, is the best in the world. I'm not so sure why we need a helicopter for the sheriff's office. I'm not so sure how many times. Remember, we only had 24 SWAT deployments in Hartford, in the sheriff's office out of 38. So does he really need a helicopter? Does he really need... Here's the problem. Government does not shrink, it expands. Okay, so once he gets his 25 million, next year's budget is going to be cost of living increase alone, and you're looking at another amount. I'm not sure why he needs this equipment. I think we ought to ask him.
If you believe the purpose of enhancing these local police forces is to, provide better protection to the officers, to provide better security to us, I
Yeah.
think you'd be hard pressed to explain it, right? If you believe, on the other hand, that it's somehow an extension of the federal government powers to act in times of not just emergency, but any time they choose to basically forward deploy these capabilities, to use them against us, the citizen, then I think it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, you have to understand, being libertarians, they perceive us as being somewhat psychotic with our federal government. The reality is, the federal government doesn't spend money on something it's not planning to use. I think they are getting ready to do some things. And I don't want to get bizarre with it, but let's get to practical matters. If they didn't have the equipment, they meaning the police officers, wouldn't they have to use police methods to coax someone out of a barricade? So they're using this equipment so they can break down doors. And most of the doors they break down are on drug. Oh, there's another thing that I totally forgot. That's the problem with this topic, you forget things. The search and seizures, anything that they come looking for drugs in someone's home, even if they're wrong, they keep all that equipment. And it's a big business. They make a lot of money selling that stuff. So if it's a computer in your house, they take it away. You never get it back. They keep it. And they don't have to apologize to you at all. I think policemen should have proper defense of himself. They're people. They're citizens. They have families. And they think they're doing the right thing. But are they protecting themselves more than they are protecting us? That's a real difficult question to answer. Yes, sir.
2 points here. One is a question to everybody here. Are you aware of the power that the sheriff's department in our counties have over the federal government?
Yes. Yes.
They can tell them to stay out. They can tell them whatever. They have carte blanche ability to say, you're not allowed in our county. So what I'm thinking is the reason they're targeting all these sheriff's departments is they're corrupting them,
Yes, they are.
changing their mindset
Definitely.
to be the little puppets of the government.
Definitely.
And then another thing that you touched on that I'm sure a lot of people are aware of, but not everybody is aware of, the ACLU.
Yes.
You said they're involved in some kind of lawyering thing with the sheriff's department or something somewhere. Is anybody aware of the actual origins of the ACLU and what they really stand for?
Oh my gosh, you go back to the origin of ACLU, you're looking at 1930.
Well,
You know,
the people
and
that founded
it's
the
supposed to be Civil Liberties Union, American Civil Liberties
Right.
Union. But, I don't want us to appear radical. I want us to be professional about this and have common sense about us. This is a situation that we know is growing. We know they're getting more and more equipment. We know the federal government under this administration is very willing to give them a lot more equipment. I mean, $74 billion last year was spread out, and they want to double that. I'm concerned that what you're saying is true. There's a mindset that comes with it. And they're changing the mindset. It's no longer a police function. It's a military function. And that's the reality of life. We can roll back, but we got to work with them to do that. Vicki?
Yeah, there is a definite push by the federal government to become involved in local policing. You didn't mention fusion centers, but fusion centers are popping up all over, and Baltimore City has a ton of them. I wouldn't be surprised if we get one ourselves. Fusion centers are where the FBI comes in and starts working with local law enforcement. So the FBI, the federal government, is coming in and working with local law enforcement, and it absolutely does corrupt local law enforcement. And my concern is, why are we doing this? All I can think of is when Barack Obama was campaigning in 2008, he said he wanted to see a civilian army, a domestic army, at least as powerful and as well-funded as the military.
He's absolutely growing that army right now. There's no doubt in my mind.
He was talking about the Air Corps, but if you read the text of what he was saying, that is not exactly.
Yeah, it's true. Scott?
I've kind of researched some of this stuff too, and one of the things that you'll find when you start, if you go and you start looking into this, is two things are happening. Almost every political jurisdiction in the country today is broke. They spend far more than they take in. So one of the things that you see happening out of this is they're using this asset forfeiture in order to confiscate people's property and then sell it in order to raise money.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
second thing that you're seeing is that we have wars that are winding down in Afghanistan and Iraq. The military-industrial complex, DINCOR, SAIC, General Dynamics, all these companies that make these MRAPs, that make M16s, that make all this equipment, they got to feed the beast. They're not going to take less. They
I agree with you.
have more. They got to sell that
I
stuff
agree.
somewhere, and this is how they're doing it.
Yeah, they have lobbyists, and they're doing a very good job with it. You see, what we have to do is be strong as a group, and we can't be extreme, or else they'll look at us and they won't believe what we're saying. I think what I want to do is I want to approach our present sheriff. I want to make sure that Ed Hopkins has an appointment with us so we can go and see the Southern Precinct and look at all the equipment. And I want them to tell us, what do you need this for? Why do you need it? Show us in your own figures. Show us in the reports and studies how the crime has risen so much that you need so much equipment that's heavy duty. I don't know, I know many of us have been in the military. I have a son that was Special Forces. I have a grandson that served 2 tours in Afghanistan, and I was assigned to a Marine group. Have any of you fired a .50 caliber machine gun? Can you remember what it was like? It's one of the most horrendous, destructive pieces of equipment that you can have. I haven't for the clue. I don't know where you could apply that in Harford County. I really don't, unless you're going against Democrats or something. That's the only thing I can think of. But I thank you very much for your time and attention. The secret is in the election years and in cornering the people that are running for office and making them do 3 basic things. Defend the Constitution, communicate with the community, and absolutely represent the people and not themselves. I thank you. God bless America. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dan. It's a pleasure to actually get to hear Dan get to expound. We've heard him in 3-minute segments, so this was a pleasure. So let's give Dan one more round of applause. And this is a topic that's near and dear to me because I've tried to follow some of this, and it's downright scary. It is not. To protect and serve is not a motto that a lot of police departments live by today. Yeah, it's kind of them against us, and it's a bad thing. Hi Terry, how you doing?
I want to mention something, folks. I look in this room and I see just a very small handful of young people. And we're all concerned about this because we know something about the Constitution. But our young people aren't being taught about the Constitution today in the school systems. I'm urging you to get in contact with someone at a school where they teach the original intent of the Constitution, because there aren't enough of us, and we're not going to be around long enough to sound the alarm. I am a school administrator at a private classical Christian school, and we teach the original intent of the Constitution. We need to tell our young people and teach them about the Constitution. It's imperative.
I have a question. Do you have an SRO, a school resource officer?
Yeah.
While we're talking about this subject, almost every high school, middle school, many
We're private
elementary
Christians,
schools.
we don't have it.
Well, they're in most of the public schools.
Yes.
And having worked in the public schools, I've seen how militarized, in a sense, the schools are becoming. What I mean to say is students that would be back talking to a teacher, which is a normal thing for an adolescent, I've seen them physically slam dunked on a concrete floor and handcuffed and taken to the office. I think as parents, or grandparents, we should find out what the instructions are for the school resource officer, what they're supposed to do, and what in fact they do. And I know they're there for safety. We don't want an armed intruder coming into a school. But I've seen police officers physically abuse students for very, very minor things that you would, have students write sentences
The
for.
police state is on all levels, unfortunately.
And it's a serious thing, and our young people are being trained by what they see in how to respond to police. And I've seen, and that's not a good thing. They see on a daily basis, they better not question the police officer.
Yeah.
That's the fear that you're trying to instill in the population. You want that fear so they have that control.
They've done a good job.
And when the gentleman that was speaking, forgive me, I'm really bad with his name, said that we need to take this and not be crazy about it. Well, the elections that we're talking about going through, the process that you're talking about going through, that's a done deal. Washington is as corrupt as it's ever going to be, and it's going to get worse. The only thing that's going to change anything for anyone in this country is if we organize in groups, and we don't have to be radical about it, but we need to get out organizing groups and go on D.C. and in mass and just shut that city down and say, listen, this is how it's going to be. You're all pack your bags and get out. You're done. You know, they can come and wreck shop with us any minute now.
Well, I think
Anytime.
Go ahead, Dan.
Answer that.
No, we'll-
I'm not going against what you're saying, but if you saw how many people were in D.C., we were there last Sunday a week ago with the veterans there. They have a system of hurting you, you're getting nowhere. All politics is local. It starts with people running for office.
Chuck.
It starts with the people that are in office. That's where you go, as a group. We'll go with you.
Yeah. By the way, thanks for being here, Jeff Gaylor. I'm not endorsing Jeff Gaylor, but I'm just saying thanks for being here, Jeff Gaylor, all right? And Vicki, real quick.
I just wanted to say something to this young lady who was talking about teaching the kids the Constitution.
Terry Cellini,
There is
yeah.
an exercise, I was reading about this on the internet the other day, Common Core exercise, where students are asked to pick their two least favorite rights from the Bill of Rights, and form a committee and see how you, and form a committee and alter them, improve them, whatever. No mention that there is a process already in place for doing that. So these kids think that they form an unelected body and just alter our Constitution without even really thinking about it. That's what they're teaching our kids today.
Yeah. It's pervasive, it's sinister, it's all over the place. Because Scott.
I just want to make one just real quick point. I mean, a lot of us are really tempted to come down on Democrats, on stuff like this. And it's easy to come down on Obama because there's a lot of reasons. We all know that. But just remember, you local Republicans are appropriating these funds to do this.
Exactly.
And all that. So you have your local Republicans as well as your Democrats that are involved in doing this. So just don't stand up and hit the Democrats. You got to go to your county council and you got to say, why are you appropriating these funds for this?
Right. Dave's actually going to talk about that Democrat-Republican thing just a little bit later. Go ahead.
So I've been trying to find out for a long time, who is a constitutional sheriff running for office?
Who is a constitutional sheriff running for office?
Of those who are running.
Of those who are running, because I'm new to the group. I haven't been here before, and everybody keeps talking about constitutional sheriffs, and I don't know who is one.
Well, I feel confident that we're going to, as Campaign for Liberty, we're going to be polling the sheriffs as far as all the candidates, and we'll make all that, whatever their answers.
Candidate survey?
Candidate survey, I'm sorry, yeah, for the sheriff candidates. Yeah, that's a good idea, right? Everybody needs to know that, right?
Yes,
Exactly.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So on behalf of you, Campaign for Liberty will be doing that, okay? So steering committee, we've already talked about that for all kinds of candidates, but obviously with the sheriff as well. Because it's hugely important, because they are the last bastion of the Constitution for the local jurisdiction. Just real quickly, we're going to change gears because we have two great speakers to wrap us up tonight. But in the middle tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick drawing for those of you who have been here for the first time tonight. We have your names in here. We have 2 Campaign for Liberty T-shirts. You can have any size you want as long as it's large. No, I'm just kidding. You can trade it for whatever size you'd like at the table where Sharon Beam will be standing. I feel like I'm like Monty Hall or something. Anyway, you can choose the box, door number 3 or whatever. All right, so the first winner tonight is... Am I probably screwing that up? All right. Down, but congratulations. And welcome. Thanks for coming tonight. And our second winner is... Come on down. Again, you can trade this at the right size. There you go. This serves double duty. It's not just to draw names for our door prize drawing, but we appreciate you guys who are here for the first time. But our costs tonight are flat out $250 just for this meeting room. We get no monies from National Campaign for Liberty. We take no salary. What you see is what you get. We appreciate your contribution to make this and all the other things that we do possible. The robocalls, literature printing, just all the things that we do. So there's plenty more of these. Sharon is passing them out in the back. There's not just one. If you only have 100, we'll let you make change. I'm going to pass this out, and we appreciate your help. All right, it's open mic time, and we have a very brief open mic segment. Dave Bauer. Dave, can you come up? Dave's going to talk about Thomas Jefferson and Samuel Adams, probably give us some quotes, which are always appreciated. It's amazing how much those old guys knew about human nature. People say the Constitution is so dated, it's all about human nature, and that does not change. That does not change. Dave Bauer.
To follow what Law said, I have a quote from a warning from Thomas Jefferson, which would have been somewhere in the early 1800s. Thomas Jefferson warned, "I place the economy among the first and most important virtues, and public debt as the greatest dangers to be feared. To preserve independence, we must not let our rulers load us with perpetual debt. When all government shall be drawn to Washington as the center of power, it will render powerless the checks provided of one government on another. Were we directed from Washington when to sow and when to reap, we should soon want bread. The forehorse of this frightful team is public debt. Taxation follow that, and in its turn, wretchedness and oppression." And then he concluded, "We must make our election between economy and liberty, or profusion and servitude." Remember the words of Samuel Adams. It does not take a majority to prevail, but a rather irate and tireless minority keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men. And we apologize for not having the attendance sheets out tonight, but NSA has installed a camera at the entranceway, and you'll be fingerprinted on the way out.
Sadly, scarily possible. Greg? Yes, no? I'm good. Okay. And I just want to close this little part with a quote from Benjamin Franklin. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. For Benjamin Franklin. All right, we have a report on the rain tax from Vicki. Vicki is a tireless worker on our Campaign for Liberty Steering Committee, and let's give her a round of applause as she comes forward.
Well, I'm supposed to be reporting on the rain tax, and unfortunately I don't have a lot to report. Everybody here familiar with the rain tax and the task force that was created by the county council? That task force has met 3 times, and at each of those meetings, not a whole lot was accomplished. They were just trying to set the parameters of what they were going to do. They fumbled around a lot. I have to say that the chairperson, Mr. Gesner, really did a good job trying to outline the questions that needed to be answered so they could move forward with their charge, which was to come up with how much money they were going to take from you and you and you and me. Now they've canceled their last 2 meetings. They haven't had a meeting in over a month. They were supposed to have a meeting last night, and that never came to fruition either. Their work needs to be completed by November because they are to report back to the council with their findings in November. What I have heard is that sometime in early November, or perhaps next week, they will be calling a meeting, and there will be suggestions, I'm assuming, coming from the Department of Public Works for the entire task force to consider. They're probably going to be looking at different projects that need to be done in terms of stormwater remediation and how much it will cost. So, the bottom line is there's really nothing to report because the task force really isn't doing much. However, on November in the meantime, though, I'm sure you're all aware that the county executive introduced legislation to repeal the legislation that had been passed earlier in the summer to enforce right, to enforce SB, what was it, 981, which is the rain tax. So that's been established, and there is a public hearing on November the 5th, which is the first Tuesday in November. There is a public hearing where citizens can go and they can address the county council and let county council people know how they feel about the rain tax. Now, everybody here has been to our meetings many times. You've been given a lot of information. You've given a lot of background information. We've talked about alternatives to the rain tax, why we think the rain tax isn't a good thing. I encourage every one of you to go. I encourage there to be an army of citizens there trying to sway the opinions of the county council. So anyway, that's the deal with the rain tax. I wish I could be there. I can't be there that night. I had a very important meeting scheduled that I just can't break. But I'll be, if you go, I'll be with you in spirit. One thing I did want to mention, I was reading some local journals this morning, and apparently our Department of Economic Development has put out, if you go to the Dagger, if anybody, get online, go to the Dagger. It's a local online newspaper, and you can read about plans that are being put forward to develop what are called transit-oriented developments. For those of you who have been coming for the last couple of years hearing about sustainable cities, Agenda 21, Stack 'em and Pack 'em, you guys are way ahead of the curve. You've been hearing about this for 2 and 3 years. That sort of thing is coming to Hartford County. And when you hear people talk about mixed-use communities and TODs, which is transit-oriented development, that is exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about taking you off of your single-family home and moving you into stack 'em and pack 'em kinds of developments. So that's something in the wind. Nothing's happening for sure, but the feelers are being thrown out there, and this can all be traced back to the kinds of things that were talked about in Agenda 21, certainly ICLEI. Hopefully you guys all remember, talking about ICLEI. So be on the lookout for these things. When I read about things like this, fire alarms go off in my head. And when I hear about transit-oriented development, that's about getting you out of your car. That's about making you walk. That's about forcing you into developments where you're close to everything, so you don't need a car. And those kinds of areas are easier to control. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Yeah. What, Dave?
I was so proud, last Sunday, St. Stephen's Church in Bradshaw, they published in their Sunday bulletin the amount, several $1,000s that they had to pay in the rain tax.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine, with the size of Mountain Christian Church, they're going to be paying tens of thousands of dollars in this rain tax. And I think about how that money's being taken from those churches who could be using that for taking care of the poor in this community instead of being wasted with the state government.
Well, I'm not really sure why that is, because all nonprofits and religious institutions should only be paying $125. So why they're paying more than they but it doesn't change the point. I mean, Boyle Buick is going to, some of these exorbitant rates are going to put some small private businesses out of business. And of course, we all know state property and municipal property and county property is all exempt.
Of course. Thanks, Vicki.
What? Oh, the council meeting on November the 5th, the public hearing is usually, what time is it, 6:30?
6:30 or 7.
6:30 before the regular meeting. Make that regular meeting go till midnight. How about you show up?
We have a question back here.
What's the question?
The emergency management building up to 543, and the new storm area next to that. That looks like a pricey project. You know how much that's running?
I have no
Like
idea.
a 4-story building.
Did anyone hear the question? The project, the storm management center on 543 near the 911 call center? Yeah.